We've talked on the YouTube channel about Prince of Persia and this franchise moving forward, and you guys can check out all of my Prince of Persia content here on the YouTube channel. But in this segment of the show, guys, I want to talk about what happened to Prince of Persia, what went wrong, what went right, and what can we expect moving forward. So let's talk about that. Guys, I think what we got to look at is obviously the two big things, obviously, when we talk about the continuation or the cancellation of any franchise or IP out there in the gaming industry, you look at the sales, number one, because it all comes down to money at the end of the day. And number two is the reception to a title. And those one or both of those things can dictate what happens with that franchise in the future. And Prince of Persia is no different. I mean, guys, when we look at the release timeline of this IP, Prince of Persia dates back to 1989, which is unbelievable when you think about it in the gaming landscape. Not many games can say they date back to 89. But with that, guys, I truly believe that what happened here with Prince of Persia was in the early 2000s to the late, to the late 2000s up to about 2010, when we look at the release timeline, and you can see in 2002 was when it really started. You had the Sands of Time in 2003 and the Harem Adventures in 2002. But this is where it gets really interesting, because from 2002 to 2008, you had at least one game come out in this franchise every single year. So it started off, you had the Sands of Time come out in 2003. 2004, you had Warrior Within. 2005, you had the Two Thrones and Battles of Prince of Persia both in the same year. 2006, you had the Prince of Persia Trilogy. 2007, Prince of Persia Classic. And then 2008, you had Prince of Persia 2008 and the Fallen King as well. So what I'm getting at here, guys, is this is just another classic ordeal of Ubisoft, in particular, who owns the Prince of Persia franchise. They are of course, the developers here, and also the publishers of the Prince of Persia franchise. And it's another way in which they almost overextended. They created too many games in the Prince of Persia franchise, in such a short period of time. Because in my opinion, guys, the Sands of Time, Warrior Within, and the Two Thrones were all great. I loved all three of those games, but I felt like they needed to be spaced out more, but they were not. And we saw Ubisoft do this as well more recently with, of course, the Assassin's Creed games. They've made them one after the other, sometimes two in a single year, and sometimes that's something that can be of real concern. So when we talk about it, I really think what happened here was they tried to overextend, create too many Prince of Persia titles. And then, of course, took a couple of years off. They bring out the Forgotten Sands in 2010. Then they had the Shadow and the Flame remake, which never happened. Then Prince of Persia Escape in 2018. And since then, guys, we've had nothing. So in 2021, we're supposed to begin the Sands of Time remake. We'll see if that ends up coming out or if that's something that is also going to be canceled. But it's been really unfortunate. Now, I do think that the Sands of Time remake makes a lot of sense, in my opinion, because it'll be able to come out on, next-gen consoles, and it'll kind of, revitalize and rejuvenate people's feelings about Prince of Persia. And then from there, they can kind of move forward with the franchise. After bringing out the remake, they can start, to greenlight another project moving forward. Now, in an article, though, guys, that was written by Katrina Philippidis of GameRanks, when you rewind the Sands of Time back to 2010, the swashbuckling Prince of Persia series was still in full swing. Since its 1989 debut, Jordan Mechner's brainchild has brought upon the gaming industry a lasting impact, which most notably manifested in the Tomb Raider and Assassin's Creed franchises. But the worlds of Persia, Italy, France, and Egypt are still different. Instead of an animus, our prince deals with magical daggers, combat mechanics, override stealth, and there are no haystacks in sight. So essentially, guys, what happened here? Almost 5 years ago, Ubisoft said the PoP franchise would be put on hold until the right time. All our franchises are always in gestation. They're cooking. Some are cooking longer than others, but they're cooking, were the precise words of Ubisoft Europe's Elaine core. However, cooking something for too long leads to an inevitable conclusion. It will get burnt. And I got to say, guys, I agree with that 100%. Now, here's the thing. Believe it or not, the first title in the Assassin's Creed chain was intended to be a Prince of Persia game. Instead of thwarting Jafar's minions, the player would become the prince's guardian. Then you had the Warrior Within sales plateau. Compared to the massively successful The Sands of Time, 2004's Warrior Within only managed to cough up 800,000 copies, a grave diagnosis for the future of the series. Fortunately, the Two Thrones and 2008 entry Prince of Persia turned things around, but it wouldn't be enough. I thought Warrior Within was good, guys, and you would think that because Sands of Time was so successful, you would think Warrior Within would do really well, but this also gets me to, once again, back to how the back-to-back-to-back games coming out every single year, it was almost fatigue. Now, Assassin's Creed outshines the Prince of Persia Rebirth. To Ubisoft's surprise, the story of Desmond Miles resonated with gamers so strongly it translated into astronomically high sales figures, stagnating at around 2.2 copies in the millions. The reimagined 3D Prince of Persia couldn't keep up with the behemoth that was Assassin's Creed, which reached 10 million. And so essentially what happened was, guys, seeing the success of the original Assassin's Creed game, good old Ubi started pumping out new Assassin's Creed titles every year. As a whole, the franchise has surpassed 100 million copies in units sold. The Prince of Persia profits simply weren't in the same league. So what does all that mean for Prince of Persia fans? Is the series dead? Call me overly optimistic, but I think a good franchise can never really die. Whether there is, in fact, a new game in development is still unknown. However, if Ubisoft plans to revive Prince of Persia, it's going to need fresh ingredients in a new oven. Only then can it be baked to perfection. So, look, I 100% agree with this, though. I agree with this statement that I don't believe that Prince of Persia is dead. I just think, guys, that it's one of those series that I believe it's just gonna take time, and they got to learn from their mistakes. That being Ubisoft. Look, bring the remake out, the Prince of Persia, the Sands of Time remake. Bring that out. But when we look at just the back-to-back titles coming out every single year, there's gonna be Prince of Persia fatigue, or just fatigue in any franchise outside of Call of Duty. There is going to be fatigue, and so we even saw fatigue with Assassin's Creed. So at the end of the day, bring Prince of Persia back, and I think it will come back at some point. I just think that they have to change the business model, that being Ubisoft. Bringing out a game every few years is different than bringing it out every single year, and I think that will resonate really well with Prince of Persia fans. Take your time, make a really good game, and go from there. I'm excited about the future of Prince of Persia, guys, because I think that the Sands of Time remake, as long as that goes through here in 2021, that will be the start of something great and something that could be really awesome to see the revitalization of the Prince of Persia franchise. But let me know, guys, do you think we're going to get a Prince of Persia, continuation? Do you think this is a franchise that's dead, in a limbo state, a state of no return? What do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section down below. And for more Prince of Persia content and videos, stay here with Zero TV.